This project is titled, Can President Biden and the U.S.'s Build Back Better World Initiative Be Enough to Slow Climate Change? It is for Geography 101. We're section Z01. In November of 2021, Joe Biden released the statement when he was speaking at the UN Climate Change Conference in Glasgow in the United Kingdom. He said, we are going to cut U.S. greenhouse gas emissions by well over a gigaton by 2030, while making it more affordable for consumers to save on their own energy bills with tax credits for things like installing solar panels, weatherizing their homes, lowering energy prices. We'll also deliver cleaner air and water for our children, electrifying fleets of school buses, increasing credits for electric vehicles, and addressing legacy pollution. He was speaking about the proposed changes that the U.S. Can make to help facilitate the move towards recognizing the greenhouse emissions goals of the Paris Climate Accord of 2015. What does this mean for the U.S. and the environment? So, as you can read, what does this change mean for you? Where did the goals come from? What is working? What is working against changes? Can the change be enough to offset other areas of the world and the things that they're doing? So I want you to think, as we're going through this, think about Russia and what we've learned about the permafrost melting and buildings being damaged, or think about the flooding and increased cost and damage caused by tropical storms or cyclones or hurricanes. I mean, you can think locally in that case. So what we know is that in 2015, during the 2015 Paris Climate Agreement, countries got together and met in December of 2015 and set goals that were to help us go towards zero emissions, damaging our space, our air, causing increased weather conditions, changing our climate, increasing temperatures. It included countries would keep temperature increases well below 2 degrees Celsius by 2050, or at least by 2100. And they would do this by weaning off of fossil fuels, finding ways to pull greenhouse gases out of the atmosphere. But what they didn't do is make an overall world plan. They let each country find their own individual solutions and report back to them. Some countries, as you know, didn't do as much as others. So, what we have are people that were, working against us, working against themselves. So in 2021, when Biden came out to the summit in Glasgow, he introduced what is the Biden Build Back Better plan for climate change. And with this plan, he said he was going to have the U.S. be committed to cutting greenhouse gas emissions by 50 to 52% below the 2005 levels by 2030. He wanted us to reach a 100 carbon pollution-free sector by 2035 and achieve a net zero economy by no later than 2050. And this is according to White House data on their fact sheet and their website. Biden's launch would be, he wanted to launch the PREPARE plan. It is the president's emergency plan for adaptation and resilience. And the PREPARE plan basically is the cornerstone of the U.S. government response. Prepare consists of components in like a 3-prong atmosphere. Knowledge. They want to provide knowledge about what we can change and information on how to get to clean sources of power. They want to use plans and programs to help people in ways that countries, or help people that are in countries that maybe don't have the resources. Help them make plans and find the different programs that are available to help them put these plans to action. And they also want to use resources. So they're going to kind of go through and spread out more information about where you can get different resources and how you can get them and how the government is going to help fund some of these changes. Additionally, the Biden administration will introduce the U.S.'s first adaptation communications to the Paris Agreement. So basically what that means, we're going to tell people what we're going to do. We're going to release our strategy and what the long-term strategy to reduce emissions to 1.5% by 2050. In this case, I think he wants to get them lower by 2035. And we're going to submit the required reports. These are all things that had been backed out of previously. This is kind of where you're going to think about different things coming out. And here's the framework that he's including within his plan. These are the changes that he wants to see here in the U.S. Some of the changes that he's talking about are clean energy rebates for consumers. So he wants to deliver substantial clean energy rebates, and this does come directly from the White House fact sheet briefing. Clean energy rebates for consumers and ensure that middle-class families like you and I save money to be able to afford clean energy and electrification, including lowering the cost of electric vehicles by $12,500 and to cut the cost of installing rooftop solar panels for a home by about 30%. Sounds good to me. If some of these resources were a little more cost effective, wouldn't they be things that you would be thinking about more efficiently every day? He wants to ensure clean energy technology. So clean energy technology, from wind turbine blades to solar panels to electric cars. These are all the different things that will be built in the United States with American-made steel. So think about people going back to work as well. And all of this is going to help slow this climate change that we're going through right now. With American-made steel and other materials, hopefully creating many new jobs. He wants to make his biggest investment in clean U.S. manufacturing in history and ensure that the U.S. is a global leader in the production of green materials like steel, aluminum, and cement. Things that will stand the test of time. He wants them to be done in a cleaner manner. He wants to advance environmental justice through the Clean Energy and Sustainability Accelerator that will invest in projects around the country while delivering 40% of the benefits of investment to disadvantaged communities as part of the President's Justice 40 initiative. So think about it. If you have ever lived in a lower income community, you know that community doesn't have the resources to put many of these changes that he's talking about into effect. This is his way of trying to find ways to help you. Biden wants to create a civilian climate corps with over 300,000 members that look like America, who will conserve our public lands, bolster community resilience, and address the changing climate, all while putting good-paying union jobs within reach of more Americans. Again, back to jobs in our economy, but again, doesn't our economy affect how we try to help sustain our environment? It shouldn't, but it does. As we've learned through looking at different articles and research that we've done in class, we know that it's not always cost effective. And then he also wants to bolster resilience and natural solutions to climate change through a historic investment in coastal restoration, forest management, and soil conservation. The framework will provide resources to states, tribes, communities, farmers, ranchers, and forest land owners supporting their efforts to improve habitat, protect against the effects of climate change, and reduce emissions. These are all the things that we have heard about and things that we have talked about. This is kind of where you're hearing about these new charging stations that he was talking about, and having a national network of charging stations, so that as we switch to electric cars to reduce emissions, we have places to go to get them charged, even if we're traveling. Along with replacing many of the fleet vehicles. Think about school buses. They're going to need to have these charging stations as well if we replace school buses with electric-powered school buses. Okay, along with this, he's talking about cleaning up pollution. One of these things is making our drinking water cleaner and safer by removing lead pipes. These are things that we need to have done. So when we look at the things that he wants to do, we think about what is really working. And a number of nations have promised to cut their climate emissions to zero by 2050. China, who is the biggest of the countries producing the most emissions, is aiming to make that cut by 2060. So they're about 10 years behind the other major countries. By 2015, emissions were on course. Before 2015, I should say, emissions were on course to raise temperatures by 3.5 degrees Celsius by 2100. With the progress from the last 5 years, it's fallen to only 2.9 degrees Celsius that it would rise. So we're getting closer to where we want to be. Now, what do we think could be going better? It's a lot to think about. Many states who started versions of the global initiatives are falling short of their goals. Countries like Russia and Brazil have largely ignored the Paris Agreement. Deforestation in Brazil is rising. And with these different things going on, again, think about the war in Ukraine, and different factors that we see going on that are creating additional emissions. In 2019, emissions fell only by 7%, so not quite enough to make the difference that we wanted to see in 5 years. If we look at this slide from NOAA, it is kind of a breakdown, and if you pause, you can actually make it bigger and look at it. It's a breakdown of some of the things going on in February of this year that are climate anomalies and events. We see things like in Africa, they had a warmer than average February, although it wasn't in their top 20. Asia was much warmer than average, and it was their 8th hottest February, 8th warmest February on record. Europe had their 7th warmest February. Okay, and this is where, again, we think back to Russia and the permafrost, and their whole 2/3 of their whole country are, could be melting. This is not a good thing. In the U.S., we saw winter storms from Texas to Maine and unusually cold temperatures in February. These, among other factors, are things that we are facing and why Biden has proposed these changes. But really, is it going to be enough? My own thoughts, based on what we know and the historical data, is that it's probably not going to meet the goals that have been set, but that it is a step in the right direction. But more than anything, I really want to know what you guys think. Do you think the steps that our president wants to help our country take are going to help in the long run? Are we going to be able to keep the climate from shifting more than it has already and help do